one at a time, and they would switch them up week by week to make sure that they were well maintained in case of emergency. Now down here on this level, we've got the two green machines straight ahead, and those are the Irvin's generators. Now these generators here could power all of the electricity needed for the ship. These ones here are actually DC generators. In later years, when they added newer technologies, they had to add AC generators as well, which are located up on the second level of the engine room. Now right up front here, of course, you can see the Irvin's engines. Now the Irvin was pretty special. It was one of the first ships out on the Great Lakes to have these kind of engines. They are steam turbine engines, so they are steam powered. Now the Irvin would burn an average of about 1 ton of coal per hour when it was out on the Great Lakes. Now behind us here we have the boiler room. That is where the steam would be created. It would then run into this high pressure turbine here, then cross over into the low pressure turbine next. After that, the steam would head up into the condenser, which is up on the second level, where it would get turned back into water so it could be recycled back into the boiler room. Now what's interesting about these engines is you'll actually see there's a gray strap at the front end of them. Now that is a reduction gear. If the power from the engines were to go straight to power the propeller, it would actually spin it at 5,600 revolutions per minute, which is much too fast for the Irvin's propeller to handle. That's why they've got the reduction gear on there. That'll reduce it to only 90 RPMs, which is much more tolerable. Hey guys, you'll actually see the propeller shaft for the Irvin. It's the white tube at the very bottom of the engine room here that runs all the way to the stern end of the ship.
So I can see that up there, so it's like a crane.
Yeah.
It says it can only carry 10,000 pounds. You shouldn't say only, because that's a lot of weight.
It is a lot of weight.
You should say that's a lot.
Now there's one other thing that's very important aboard the Irvin, and that is communication. And one of the easiest ways to communicate with the men up in the pilot house is the machine next to me here, called the Chadburn or the telegraph. Now this would be pretty easy to work. The men up in the pilot house would use it to send a request down here to change the speed of the ship. Once the message was received down below, an alarm would constantly sound until an engineer came over and lined up the gold arrow with the black one that stated the request. At that time, the alarm would shut off, and it would also alert the men in the pilot house that they received the message down here. So I'll give you guys just a little sample of what it might sound like if they get a message down here from the Chadburn. Now it is pretty loud, but you guys can imagine that with all the machines running down here, it would be very noisy. So it had to be loud to be heard over all the other noises. Now if they needed to give more specific directions or talk to someone down here, they could also call using the sound-powered phones in the back corner. Now these would be easy to work as well. You simply turn it to the number of the room you'd like to call, give it a couple cranks, and it will ring in that room. Now the engine room here is number 2, and if you give it a couple cranks, you can hear it'll ring, and also down here the light up top will go off. Now that's simply a noise reason as well. That way you can see you have a call as well as hear it. It would not only be very warm down here, or very noisy, it would also be very warm. It could get anywhere up to 120 degrees Fahrenheit down here in the late summer months.
That's hot.
Yeah.
So I can see right there. So like they've preserved this place for a long time, because I can still see the circuit breaker sitting there.
Yeah. That's actually how we turn on the lights in the morning when we come into the engine room. All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to head back up the stairs here. We're going to take a look at some of the cruise rooms on board, as well as the mess hall and the galley. So if you guys are ready, we can head right out here.